Good evening and welcome to EmpowerU. Welcome to those on you online as well. I'm Betty Overstreet, the Executive Director. I don't know if we have anybody new here tonight, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about EmpowerU in case we do. EmpowerU was founded in 2011 by Dan Reginald, who is also the founder and CEO of Frame USA. And Dan's vision was to present free classes on a diverse number of topics. So that's what we try to do. We haven't had any fun classes yet, but we got some fun classes coming up. We're going to have a coffee tasting, bourbon tasting, and we're even going to hear Doris Day, kind of like Doris Day. Anyway, all of our classes that are in the studio are live streamed. So if anytime you can't make it to a class, you can always sign on online and watch it there. If you miss it and you want to see it later, it is posted to the website within a day or two after the class. We also welcome your feedback. Any comment that you may have, good, bad, whatever it is, we welcome that. That helps us learn and helps us grow. We also like for you to give us ideas of classes. Many of our classes do come from suggestions of our audience. We are a free university, but we do still have expenses. So towards the end of each class, we do pass around our little red buckets, and if you feel like you'd like to give any kind of donation, we appreciate anything that you'd like to give. Also, tonight our speaker is going to take questions during his presentation. If you have a question, please raise your hand and wait for one of us to bring a microphone to you so that everyone in the studio, and especially those people online, can hear your question. And we do have a door prize tonight. Dan, do you have the tickets for the door prize? Oh yeah, I do want to talk about a couple of classes. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. Next Tuesday, we have the Ohio gun laws changes. Attorney Sean Maloney is going to be here, and he's going to be talking about the different changes that are going on in the state of Ohio. If you're a concealed carry person, you want to come to that class because that's something you're going to want to need to know. Also, I think probably if you're concealed carry, you know that the federal laws don't always match the state laws, and the federal laws, I believe, take precedence over state laws. But anyway, Sean will be able to tell you all about that. Then that's our only class next week. And the following Tuesday, we're going to have a class called Confidence Instead of Chaos with Dementia. Teresa Youngstrom is an expert in this area. She particularly works with caregivers. And I don't know if any of you have ever been a caregiver, whether you have or not. You could be a caregiver tomorrow or next week or month or next year. You never know. Could be one of your parents. It could be your spouse. But she will give you ideas on how to handle that situation if you're facing it or if you do facing it in the future. So I hope you'll try and come to that class. That's the only class for that week also. And then we're into the 1st of April, which we're going to have a class on Elon Musk and his city on Mars. So I don't know how many of you want to be one of the first ones to go to Mars, but if you do, you want to be sure and come to that class so you maybe know what to expect because you might change your mind. And then we're going to have our first fun class the first week of April, and that's going to be coffee tasting. So that's all I'll talk about now, and I'll have Dan come up, and we have a couple posters. I don't know which one we're giving away.
Okay, so get your tickets out for the big drawing. Welcome everybody tonight. Welcome everybody online. And the first drawing is for one of our, is the proper term cannabis posters, Dr. Sawyer? It's for either of your choice of your framed cannabis poster for you to take home and put in your house. So get ready. This is something everybody wants, I'm sure.
711.
711. Who's got 711? The last three numbers, I'm sorry. Okay, yes. You win. Come on up.
And since all of you braved this bad weather to come out, we're going to have 2 door prizes.
And your name again.
So we have another one.
Barton, which one do you want? That one or this one? Okay.
I'll get it when I
get it at the end. Let's give Martin a round of applause, everybody. And then the second prize, we wanted to give away a copy of this incredible book. This is one of our classes on April the 23rd. It's called A Child of the Forest. It's written by Jack Grossman, who will be here on April 23rd. This is an incredible story. It turns out I grew up about 9 houses away from Jack, and he, about 9 or 10 years ago, ran into a Holocaust survivor and chronicled her story. And it's just an incredible tale of what she went through to escape the Nazis in World War II. He'll be here on April 23rd. I've read it. It's a real, once you start, you'll read through the whole thing. You may have heard Kevin Gordon talk about it on 55 KRC. So this drawing is for this book right here for my friend Jack Grossman.
Last 3 numbers, 735.
Congratulations. And your name again is?
Ken.
Ken, congratulations. Thank you, Betty. Let's give, would you guys give Betty Overstreet, our executive director, a round of applause? Thank you. And the team too. We've got a fresh batch of popcorn back there if you're hungry tonight. So I've got our producer Jay in the back. Give him a round of applause, everyone. And our operations manager Jill's in the back tonight. She helped put this class together. And also Bill Roll, our treasurer. So just a couple things I wanted to go over with you tonight. I wanted to let you know that I forgot to thank our friend Nita Thomas for helping put together Judge Russell's discussion of human trafficking. Were any of you here for that the other night? It was really, I really thought it was really interesting. And I was so glad that she could come here and talk to us about that. So Nita, if you're watching tonight, thank you. And to all of you who were too scared to come out in the rain tonight and are online now, I've seen the numbers back there. Welcome. Glad you could join us. And just a couple other things. I've got an announcement that on June 10th, for all of you people that, if any of you know any of the Gang of Five in Cincinnati, the state auditor has decided to have the Ohio Public Meetings and Records Act training session in this facility at EmpowerU. So it's a fascinating class. It lasts 3 hours and it teaches you, if you ever need to know anything about what your government's doing, how you can request information. And in the case of the people in Cincinnati, what they did that was illegal when they met. So that'll be on June 10th. We just found out that we were going to get that today. My friend, Mr. Janis in the back, helped us do that. And we look forward to that class. It just went up on the web. You can register for it now. A couple other things that I wanted to talk to you about. Our little quiz here. I just this was a question that has perplexed me for the last week or so. And when I heard that how our senator voted today, I wanted you to answer this question for us, if you think there's an emergency. And for those of you online, there's a 2-part question. I can't hand this to you like I have everybody here tonight, but the 2 questions are, first, yes or no, is the situation on the southern border an emergency, yes or no? And the second question is, should the President of the United States be allowed to declare an emergency to allow him to spend money on the border outside of Congress's control, yes or no? If you're online, just simply, there's a little button you can hit to ask a question. You can put number 1, yes or no, number 2, yes or no, and we'll count your answers. And we're gonna tabulate those and we will put them on the blog part of our website. Jay, could you scroll down a little bit on that? Which is right there. So the results of that, if I don't have them tonight because of the people online, you'll see tomorrow, you'll know how the public responded to that. I guess I've watched the subject of marijuana be discussed in Ohio for a long time, and I'm glad something is finally going on. I'm eager to hear what our guest thinks about it, but I'm just so glad he could come tonight and talk to us about marijuana, because I've just seen so many people that have chronic pain and know how difficult it is for them to just kind of get by through the day. And I just think it's great that we kind of understand it, because I don't. So Will Sawyer has agreed to come tonight. He's a doctor with a solo practice that is Sharonville Family Medicine, very close to here. He started the Henry the Hand Foundation in 1999, which was a hand awareness program, which is based on the 4 principles of hand washing. He is one, I believe you were one of the first 5 people to receive the medical license for certification to recommend, and that's what you need to recommend marijuana for prescription to someone. So he was one of the very early ones, and I hope you'll talk a little bit about what you had to go through to get that. And Dr. Sawyer offers a personal consultation about medical cannabis if you're interested. He's also a neighbor of mine in our great little city of Glendale, and we're just pleased tonight to have Dr. Will Sawyer. Welcome. And if you kind of pass your forms to the middle, we'll collect those from you. Thank you.
Great. Hey, good evening. Thanks for coming out in these torrential rains and windstorms. I mean, it was quite something coming from Sharonville that wasn't sure what was going to happen, but thanks for making the effort. So who am I? So I've been a solo practice family doc since 1986 over in a little red brick ranch house in Sharonville. I took over the practice from Dr. Namath, who was there in 1960. And I'm one of the 8 to 10 independent family physicians left in Hamilton County. Everybody else has sold out to the hospitals, hoping that it's a better opportunity. I knew that I couldn't do that. I can't type and see patients and do good care. And the relationships are such a key part of medicine. And so I'm still out there independent, and many of the others, I would like to see other employed physicians change back to independence, because they certainly don't like what they're necessarily doing as far as the typing, so to speak. They become data entry docs as opposed to good clinicians. So there's been a long journey. Over those 32 years, you have relationships with families, you see lots of diseases, lots of problems that have occurred, and there are many times you just don't know how to treat it. You know, I mean, there are certain medications that are available that we're allowed to prescribe, and they have side effects. And what I've seen over these times is sometimes the side effects are greater result than the benefit. Short term, there could be some benefits, but they're not all what we would like them to be necessarily. So when the medicinal cannabis issue started coming up around Ohio, so it's all around, it's in many different states, as you all know, in the country. Some have it recreationally, which is you don't need to see a doctor to get a certification to have access. But those states who I think who had started with medicinal cannabis is a better approach, my perspective, because you need some guidance. And to me, one of the big questions I always like to ask everybody, and for you to understand, is addiction is a human disease. What's yours? Yours, 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 yours. So I just want you all to think about that, because there's real science behind that. And it can be sugar, power, money, adrenaline, fast cars. I mean, what are some other addictions somebody may have? You can just shout it out if you'd like. Caffeine. Soda. I mean, there's many of them. And actually what I was trying to do at some point is have somebody come up and make a list of everybody's addiction in the room, but that's a little hard right now. So maybe we won't do that. But as I've seen this over the decades, quite frankly, and honestly, what happened, then we have this opiate epidemic that's been developing. And you've all heard a lot about it. You know, physicians have been taking a lot of heat for this. You know, we've been blamed for a lot of this. You know, then there are also the veterinarians, there are the dentists, And then there's the pharmacists, there's the black market, and then there's Cardinal and McKesson, companies who, as you're discovering more and more, and then those who created it, Purdue Pharma. And what's happened is it has created a huge problem. And it's truly, you talk about an emergency. This is an emergency, the opiate epidemic. It is. Something different needs to occur to treat this problem. So when they were talking, so the benefits that I've seen around the country with cannabis can absolutely be applied and benefit the opiate epidemic. So I thought, okay, now the state has legalized the opportunity for medicinal cannabis back in 2016, and I thought, now there could be some progress going forward. There's many other issues in the opiate epidemic that are very difficult to control, and particularly for those who have been taking those medications. And for those of you who have, or have family members or friends who have, you know how very difficult it is to stop, because there's addiction, there's chronic pain, and how do you address that? You can't ignore it. I mean, we all would like to have acupuncture, massage therapy, inversion tables, all kinds of other therapies available, but those are costly and very difficult. So as the medicinal cannabis piece started unfolding, and the state had come up with some conditions that they would offer, what you will notice on the list, and I think they passed out the list, the opiate epidemic is not included, however, chronic pain is. And there are many other conditions as well. So I thought, as a family doc who takes care of the family, it could be another tool in the toolkit, which would be a wonderful opportunity to help with chronic pain and many of these other conditions that the state has set up. There are some other conditions that other states have added: insomnia, anxiety, and opiate use as well. So Ohio has the ability to add some additional conditions. You have to go through an application process to do that. And some have applied, and the state commission, if you will, it's the pharmacy board, has to review this and look at the data, and they'll get back to everybody in 6 months or so, perhaps. So that's when I thought this would be a path that somebody should take. So that's, as Dan said, I was one of the first 5 to do this. And it is a polarizing issue. There are many people who are you kidding? And you've run the gamut, and many of you have heard this. And what I've said is, if understood, trained, coached, and you have a quarterback, it could be very beneficial. And it's for those over 50. It's not for the young. This is not for adolescents. This is for folks who are over 50, who many have never used cannabis. So they need a lot of TLC to go through this, because fears, misusing what could happen. So I thought it's part of the family practice or internal medicine practice. Unfortunately, there are many docs who, because of the employment, the hospital systems have made a determination that they're not going to allow their physicians who are employed to do this, because it could risk Medicare dollars. Because, as you know, cannabis is illegal federally. In fact, it's a Schedule I drug. So what the Schedule I drugs are heroin, is an example of one. And cannabis, way back when, and I don't recall the year, was classified as a Schedule I, which means you can't use it for treatments like this. Now, Ohio, because of their legislation, wrote it in that saying, in Ohio, it will be considered a Schedule II, so that those who are using will not be at risk for federal injunction, if you will. And then physicians who, as a certified to recommend, because you cannot prescribe a Schedule I medication, you can only recommend it. So what that means is I can recommend to somebody who meets certain of the state's conditions. And let me tell you a little bit about that process. It's all online, okay? So people who are afraid to have their information online, I tell you, don't do this, because it all has to be online. I have to submit your data to the state registry. And I have to have counseled you on risk factors. And actually one that I've just become aware of that I didn't quite know about was in the paper the other day, which you may have heard, that if you have your certificate, if you are part of the state registry for cannabis, you cannot have a concealed carry license. And I thought, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. I mean, because again, it's, to me, if somebody is under the care of a physician, whether it be depression or whatnot, I think, you certainly have somebody you're under the advisory of and the care of. I'm just a little concerned about these rules that seem to be artificial, but it could be a very interesting opportunity for bigger national organizations to sort of come together and collaborate and say, let's make this a Schedule II. So then that would be tremendous for the opportunity for treatment for people and patients. So we'll see how that comes out. In Ohio, potentially, we could have some influence, I think. So anyway, back to the certificate to recommend. So we would put your information into the state registry. We have to check an OARS report, which is the Ohio it's a adverse, OARRS. It's the report I have to review every 90 days for anybody who's taking a narcotic, a tranquilizer, or a stimulant. So we have to make sure you're not doctor shopping. They don't want anybody to doctor shop. So then after that, what you do is they will send you a little bit of information. You pay a $50 fee. And if they agree, you meet the criteria and they're not aware of any other instances behind the scenes that I'm not aware of for you, they will send you the card. And what this card, this cannabis card, allows you to do is enter into a dispensary. So, and there will be up to, I think it's 50 licenses in Ohio for dispensaries, of which there are a few down theoretically and around the greater Cincinnati area, but none have opened to date that I'm aware of. So some have opened in Cleveland and outside of Columbus. And then what you can do with that is that person on the card can go into the dispensary. Now, for those who are caregivers for somebody who has some conditions where they are unable to go into the dispensary, be they certain diagnoses and they're not able to get around, you can become a caregiver for that individual who can go in and get some medication for them, if you will. Now, what happens when you're in the dispensary, it's sort of the old model of the pharmacopoeia. Way back when you'd go in and the pharmacist would take the crucible, so to speak, and grind it up and you tell them your ailments, and then they would provide you the treatment, as opposed to what's happened in sort of recent years, where I prescribe lisinopril or amitriptyline or something like that. You go to the pharmacist and they give you exactly what I prescribed. Now, this is a little bit different, that you get the card to get in. And then at the dispensary, what happens is they say, well, tell me about your condition, tell me about your symptoms. And then what they then do is recommend to you the type of product that they have. Interestingly enough, I don't know exactly what they have. So it's a little bit disconcerting for the physician, who we're sort of used to control, I would say, over what patients are getting. So we know that, you know, if there's side effects or other issues, that we should hopefully be but somewhat aware of it, or at least can respond to it. So we don't have that element of control, if you will. Depending on what the individual, they call them bud tenders in the dispensary. So depending on what they've provided for you, what you do is, and based on your symptoms, they give you a combination thereof. And so basically the medications that they will be offering is, in Ohio, it'll be a cannabis product or a hemp product, because what the state has also done is they've said hemp, while legal federally, is not legal in Ohio now to be sold any place but the dispensaries. You know, surprise, but that's what they're doing. Except I've just heard a little bit of today, which in fact, Brian Thomas, who called me on the phone, I heard it from him. I was surprised. He says Temptations can sell CBD oil from hemp because they don't have a state license for selling other items, I guess. So you can purchase it from Temptations in Ohio today, which was great because cannabidiol, which is CBD, the acronym, is very, very, very effective. In that, basically, the ingredients of cannabis are THC and the cannabidiols, which you have the terpenes, the limonene, the flavonoids, and many other chemicals that are very effective. But the CBD is the most important ingredient of the cannabis. So you can get it from hemp today, so to speak, at Temptations. So, and that's how I start with patients. I would start with them saying, go down and get some hemp. Start with the CBD once the state allowed it in September of 16, they talked about it. I'd say, go down and get started. And many people saw benefits already. So they don't have to progress to getting the certification necessarily. I've had others say, well, I don't need to do that, doc, because I'm doing fine. So inside, back to the dispensary. We're in the dispensary. They say, all right, so you're having trouble with this pain and this issue. And they'll say, well, you need to have an ingredient of a small fraction THC or no THC with cannabidiol. And so where the pharmacy, or the determination is with that person, bud tender, saying, let me give you a 1 to 20 ratio of THC to CBD, or a 1 to 4 ratio of THC to CBD that will hopefully meet your needs for your symptoms. And then what you do then is you can get up to a 90-day supply. Now your question for me is, how much is that? And I can't tell you. They tell you. Again, I can't say take 90 pills, 1 QD or 270, 1 TID, which I'm used to, but they determine what your 90-day supply is. And then what you do, you come back to the doctor, and now we've been a little bit more than 90 days, and how are you? What are your symptoms? What's the benefit? What have you seen? And that's the information I then put into the state registry when you redetermine. Because what they would like to know, is there a benefit to this treatment? Yes or no, basically, but a few other questions that go along with this. So they're regulating it a lot. They're trying to make sense of it. They don't want pill mills to be created. We've seen what's happened in the past with that. So they're just doing tiptoeing the water, and which has been very frustrating for many patients, quite frankly. They're going, come on, doc, I thought it was available. I thought this was happening. I thought it was here. And I'm going, you know, I am as much, you know, in the dark as you are from certain issues from the state. We read it in the paper. We call them periodically. I'm not privy to any information because I'm one of the, I think there are about 400 physicians around Ohio now who have become certified. What I would love to see is that every family physician or internal medicine physician who cares for patients who have chronic pain, who want to continue to take care of them, should have some level of certification, because it's that relationship and that understanding that you have with your personal physician. So I'm hoping that that actually happens, but we'll wait and see what happens there. Schedule 1, CTR, the process. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's a process. Dan had asked, what's the process for a doctor to become certified to do this? There's a educational program we go to. Physicians are required to have 50 hours of continuing medical education. You do it on-site, at a meeting, you can do it online, you take tests, you have to prove that you've actually sat through some of this or read the article and the document and sat through. So that's what you have to do initially to become certified, to become a physician, to a CTR, certification to recommend. It happens to be a class that there's a Dr. Sulak, Dustin Sulak, who's an osteopathic physician up in Maine, is the one who's created this. And he's been doing medicinal cannabis for 10 years up in Maine. And he has a website. I want you to write this down, everybody. It's called healer.com. HEALER.com. It's very informative for patients, physicians, others who are very interested in learning about the benefits of cannabis, which is, now when I say cannabis, I really want to say THC and CBD. That's what I want you to hear, because it's not, and that's why I say don't say marijuana, because that means something else to everybody, because it's a flashback from reefer madness and all these other issues that many of us in the room are of the age group that we saw that, and it was going to make people psychotic and they're going to do all these crazy things to you, which cannabis is not that, you know, medication they were building it out to be back then. So there's a wealth of information that he has and he's provided. So for the academic class for the physicians to go through and then apply to the state for this CTR. Now, your question for me is, well, does every physician who applies get accepted? And the answer is, if you have a clean license, no, you know, no felonies or anything else or other issues, the answer is yes. Have any been denied that? And the answer is, I don't know. They don't tell us that, but it's up to them. So it's an educational process, but that's just the beginning. And so as you can imagine, there's an ongoing education that should occur. And many physicians back when, I would just say, pharmaceutical reps would come in and educate you about the new medications that they're offering. And, you know, and the sort of story goes, they buy you lunch and do all that. And you go, geez, you're buying their, you know, prescription writing. But you don't have anybody coming around educating you about cannabis and those benefits. But the healer.com has a wealth of information. There are many seminars that are online. In California, there's a Dr. Frankel who's been doing it for quite a long period of time, and you can track them. And that's what I've been doing, spending a lot of time learning from those who've been doing it a lot longer. Because the fear of many of us is to make a misstep. We don't want you to have any of these problems. And that's where the coaching comes in. So what I want you all to begin thinking about is questions that you may have. As I'm sitting here talking, I want you to think about questions you would have and that's where, and Dan had said I have for these consultations, that you would like to go in and ask your personal physician questions in the privacy of an exam room with nobody else around, because, you know, everybody's a little concerned about the reaction a doc or somebody may have. when you bring this up or show any interest in it, because again, it's back to the over 50 years of age. And many of us aren't used to that. So think about any questions that you have that I would love to answer, because that's why I thought this be more of a fireside chat rather than a lecture. So, because I can run out of gas here any moment. So.
And Doc, we need to have everybody speak into the microphone before they ask the question. I want to ask a question from an online watcher first. I didn't catch this, but he asked the question, did you say there is an age limit below medical marijuana cannot be recommended?
Yeah. Not necessarily below what could be recommended, because for certain disease states, seizures and whatnot, for children who have seizures and other chronic degenerative nervous diseases, they can. What I meant by that was, much like alcohol, it's not for the under 21. So what happens is, when many people think medicinal cannabis available, legal in Ohio, this is a kids, it's a gateway drug, and they default into this. And I go, no, 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 this is not about that. This is about medicinal purposes, recommendations on conditions. It's not for global legality. So that's what, because it gets blurred. What you'll hear from groups is, the children shouldn't be doing this. The answer is, if you have a medical condition that warrants this, you know, Tourette's syndrome, autism in many places are using this very effectively.
Here's the first question.
John, I have a question. You said that once you prescribe this, person comes back after 90 days and you enter into a database, and you said that the way that the bud people do it, it's a percentage of the CBD and the THC. Do you get a feedback on what that percentage is, or are you going blindly and they just said this is great and it seemed to work, but you don't know, there's no quantitative data on what the mixture was?
Great question. The answer is, they don't have to bring it back. What do? I say, I want to see this. So I've made 2 steps, and since it just went live December 3rd, you know, March 3rd was the first 90-day period. So what I've had is, I've had patients take pictures of the bottles and send it to me. And I've called one of the dispensaries up north, what's the 3rd? The 5th, you know, several days ago. I'm still waiting for the call back. No, and that's what's very difficult. I want to know what you're using that has given you benefit, such that as I build my, you know, knowledge base, that this has helped for these conditions, now I feel better about recommending.
Can I clarify that? So when I go to a specialist, if you're my doctor and you say go to a specialist, the specialist is always telling you what they're doing. You're telling us the state is not giving you any feedback or any information.
Well, it's not the state, it's the dispensary.
The dispensary.
So it's like the pharmacist. So the parallel for this is, it's Kroger's, right? You know, but I've written lisinopril 10 milligrams. So I know that they're getting that from Kroger's. So they come back and I have it here, lisinopril 10 milligrams, here's your blood pressure result. I send them to the dispensary for chronic pain. They go in, the bud tender decides this is what you should use. They've given you Dreamweaver, Black Cohosh, or, you know, et cetera. And you come in and say, you know, I'm doing a lot better. I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not taking, because the part of it is to reduce other medications you're taking. And I'm sleeping better. I'm doing much better. Great. I'll put it in your medication list. And I need to know that we need a better feedback loop, basically. So we're going to work on improving that.
Here's a question right here.
My name is David, and I have 2 questions. The first one being, it's off the question we just asked. If I come to you, could you tell me what I would need for CBD or the THC or whatever? Because my experience is when I go somewhere else, I mean, I work on cars, so I go to car parts places. You might get 3 different opinions of what you might need. So if you go to a dispensary, depending who you get there, you know, would you really get what you know are after the end result?
That's a wonderful question. So far my understanding is I don't know who you're going to see and meet at the dispensary because it's independent of, and they have to go through 16 hours of training to become a bud tender to work in a dispensary in Ohio. What I do hope is, I have a brother in Colorado and Washington State. I hope we import these bud tenders from those states who've been doing it for years, who have a lot more wisdom and capabilities than the new person who's just starting. But I don't know who they're employing. But again, I would love to know that. I don't. It's a great question. But what I do, what I can help you with, and is, again, it's the whatever your condition primarily is, it's, again, the emphasis is CBD, cannabidiol. Remember that name. That's what you want to, that's the major benefit of the medication from hemp or cannabis. And then what you'll hear, the benefit of a low dose THC, you can lower the dose of CBD. So they call it the entourage effect, where they work together. It's almost like homeopathic treatments where, microdosing gives you some benefit rather than overdosing. So, and that's the knowledge base that docs will develop through other additional studies, quite frankly. And so, but the hope is that we know what the medications are in the dispensaries around Cincinnati. This is what I'm trying to get a bunch of docs to say. We want what's on the list in dispensary A, B, C, D, E, so I can say, all right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go ask for this, because I can only recommend you. I can't prescribe it. I can't say prescription because it's federally illegal.
Okay, the second question I had is around here, I'll just say where it was, Jungle Jim's carried CBD oil, and they took it off the shelves because it has to go to the dispensaries, I guess now. They can't just sell it. But what I noticed is a replacement of CBD oil derived from orange peels. Do you know anything about that? CBD oil from orange peels. They say it's equal to the hemp, but is that?
I don't know that is the short answer, but it's not from hemp. And I certainly know that hemp is has been the gold standard, if you will, for CBD that's non-cannabis. I don't know if Dan knows.
We're going to take an online question. And Jay, what I'd like you also to do, we've got a bunch of people online tonight. Would you explain to people online how they ask a question when you get done asking the question that somebody's asked?
Absolutely. We have several questions. We'll do a couple now and then come back. For the benefit of everybody online, there is a Q&A button. You may not see the button until you move your mouse to the bottom of the computer screen, or if you're on a phone, you may have to touch the screen in order to see the Q&A button. You can then type your question in and we will answer as many as we can. The first question now, how will recommended medical marijuana use be viewed by Ohio law if the user also has a state concealed carry handgun permit? Are they going to be considered under the influence of a Schedule II substance?
That's a great question. I have no idea, but it would be something that I would love to see some groups coordinate, in national groups who have a bigger interest in, maintaining access for concealed weapons, frankly, to say, let's make it Schedule II.
Well, I just want to interject on that because Betty, Jill, what date's our gun class?
Yeah.
Next Tuesday night, one of the foremost gun experts in Ohio, I expect, will answer that question, and I'll let you know what he has to say.
I'd love to hear that.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question earlier, and I have to admit I missed it also, but they're asking that you repeat a website, a medical website.
Healer, HEALER.com.
Healer.com.
Yeah, so,
okay.
And the doctor's name is Dustin Sulak, S-U-L-A-K, osteopath, D-O, and wealth of information. There is another fellow, John Malanka, who has, it's called The Sacred Plant, that he's been talking about, and they have a little series on YouTube, and he brings experts in to talk about different benefits to this. So, and this is where, as you're in the privacy of your home, you can look at this and see how it may benefit a family, friend, or others, or,
The second one was Sacred Plant.
The Sacred Plant.
.com.
I think so. You Google, yeah, sacred plant, it pops
Patty,
up.
would you write those down? We'll put those up on the website, healer.com and sacredplant.com. Jay, do we have any more questions back there?
Question, how much education do the cannabis dispensaries have to have in order to know what to give you? What kind of licensing do the dispensers have in order to dispense?
Yeah, so it's the bud tenders have to have 16 hours of a prescribed program before they can be working in the dispensary. And every dispensary has to have at least a pharmacist available. Whether they have to be there every day, I believe they do. So it's like a pharmacy tech working with a pharmacist at the Kroger's, for instance.
Question right here.
Jerry, please. I hope I understand you. Okay. You as a doctor, if you had control over what you could recommend to a patient, you would be able to do that now? You would have that information, or are you just sending them to somebody else who should have that information with 16 hours of education? So what is that?
The second, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trusting
Yeah,
that
okay,
that person.
So you yourself don't really know what they should be coming back with from the dispensary.
That I will tell you, that's part of my angst about part of this. And what I have asked patients of mine is I've said, listen, after you go, please let me know what they gave you or sold you.
Yes. So all the research as far as the effects of these drugs is going to be dependent upon dispensary, the people who are making the money dispensing these drugs. Is that correct?
Not exactly, but almost. So what it is inside the dispensary, when they've decided what product they're going to offer or sell, that's where their bud tenders will be selling that product. Now, behind the scenes is determining what is the good product to have in the dispensary. That's going on by the dispensaries who want to sell good products, I would believe, that have passed through regulations, have been checked for contamination, because there's also concerns about contamination. Everybody worries about, you hear about Roundup and anthracene chemicals in the food that we're eating now, and everybody's wondering, gee whiz, what about that in the cannabis, or paraquat in the cannabis, which is what they used to spray way back, 40 years ago. So they're looking for contaminate. The state has identified labs around the state that do the review of the product before the dispensaries could sell them. So there is some control about what's being sold. But there may be a lot of product available, and what my question is, so is the dispensary in Cincinnati selling the same product as the one in Columbus, Cleveland, Kenton, or whoever? And the answer is, you don't know. There's been no standardization that I'm aware of what's going to be sold in each dispensary.
And you won't even know necessarily the negative effects, because I don't know that these dispensaries would be interested in saying in pointing out their mistakes.
No, but I understand what you're saying. It's the side effects, it's the complications, and that's where the education and the coaching for people is start low and go slow. Now, and that's where for folks as yourself, for instance, if you said, gee, I need it, I've got chronic pain, I want to try this, but I'm afraid if I take too high a dose of this, it may cause some irreversible reaction, or some reaction at all that you didn't want. And the good news at a certain level is cannabis, THC and CBD are extremely safe. CBD alone is incredibly safe. There's no respiratory suppression with THC and CBD. You virtually cannot overdose on that alone. Liver toxicity has not been proven. You know, how much do you have to take to do that? But there are some crazy reactions where people can start feeling hot, you know, and they feel sick, which is like an allergic sort of reaction. And then what they found is you get into a tub of water to alleviate that. Apparently it's a fairly rare event, but that's really the only reaction that I've heard. So, but again, back to the coaching, and this is why I say medicinal benefit, medicinal coaching, you know, as you would, your physician talks to you about the medications and this is what you should do. You know, pharmacists today want to talk about that as well, but yeah.
Here's a question.
Pam, if the condition is not approved or the diagnosis is not approved here in Ohio, are you able to go to another state, see a doctor,
Right.
bring the card back to Ohio?
Not yet.
Okay.
Although I will tell you, I've heard of people going to Michigan they had their license in Ohio and they were able to go into a dispensary in Michigan to get some cannabis, or, you know, THC CBD combination. Now, I don't see that there's reciprocity in Ohio that to date, as of yesterday when I looked on the web, do not promote that. I think they just probably are saying a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You've got a license there, just don't get caught crossing the border, which we've heard. There are a few cases back in Toledo where some kids were driving 90 miles an hour and came back with.
So the state that you obtain the license in,
You
have
have
to obtain
here.
product in.
Correct. Yeah. So here's a variation on the question. If that, do you have another question? I've got a variation on that
Yeah, I
too.
just had a comment. What's the difference in having a side effect from a pharmaceutical medication? People have lots of side effects from Percocet, Vicodin,
Oh, I
you
know.
name it. And you don't know what the side effect is going to be until you take it.
Right. Oh, no, which is part of why I'm doing this, because there are many more side effects from Percocet, oxycodone, and all that we are allowed to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's horrifying what's happening right now, frankly. So thank you for, right.
This is probably a stupid question. Do you have people come to see you just because they want to get high?
I know it's not a stupid question. Sure, the calls. I mean, my gosh. Let me tell you, pardon me, when my name showed up and this happened, oh my God, my staff was going, oh, no click, no click, no click. You know, they're slamming the phone down. You know, I'm just a little solo doc. I mean, so it's not a stupid question.
So when somebody comes in and they get
No, we don't let them in. We don't get that far. We screen them a little bit in the beginning and go, tell us about this. Who did that? You know, no, we don't.
understand.
We're plenty busy.
Here's a question right here.
I'm Martinson. I was wondering how you can CBD oil, is it oil? Is there other ways to have it administered? And with the buds, if you're getting cannabis buds, is there CBD oil in those buds? And the only way to get it out of that is by smoking, or is there other ways to get
Or vaping it. So it's very interesting. You can vape it, but they are distilling it. So it's in oils and they're putting it in edibles, right? So Ohio's law says no combusting, no smoking it. So vaping is not smoking, it's heating it up. So that's a very interesting piece. So the science of that is, you know, to get the benefit of CBD, the terpenes, limonene, flavonoids, and in THC, you don't have to light it. You heat it up to certain temperatures. You know, there's 235 degrees, 285 degrees, and combustion starts occurring, I think, around 288 or 90 or 320. So you don't have to light it with a match or a lighter to get the benefit. So you don't smoke it. You can heat it up. Interesting. And there are different, you know, devices you can do that with. So, yeah.
Here's a question back here, doctor.
I know a medical facility that keeps the CBD oil in their facility. Is that an option for you if you wanted to invest in it?
No.
Then why can they do it? You know, okay.
No, because I mean, here's what happened. So once I learned about CBD and you know, 2 years ago, actually, once I found it was legal in Ohio 2.5 years ago, you know, I started recommending to patients to do this, and I saw such tremendous benefit. I called one of the companies and said, "Oh my gosh, you know what they're selling it for down the street?" I said, "I would love to, you know, sell it to patients for less than that." So I checked it out, and then when I took the class, you know, took this class, did this, applied, and it said, "Beware, doctor, you cannot have CBD on your site and or sell it." Because anyway, so I thought, oh, okay, I'm not going to take.
Here's a question right here.
Doctor, this is Ken Bowman. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It's very educational. Next Tuesday, we're having a class on dementia. And would you be willing to share some testimonies on patients you have worked with who either had Alzheimer's or some type of dementia?
So in my early stage, I've heard it's pretty effective, and there's been some benefits from other parts of the country. But in my, you know, patient base, we're 90 days into it, you know, plus a few. So I can't be that necessarily expert as far as my experience. This is where the others around the country, I would be referring to their anecdotal information.
Hi, my name's Phil. When you mentioned doctor shopping earlier, could you elaborate on that? Does that mean that if I already have a primary care physician, that I'm pretty much
Stuck with
relegated to them?
No, not that. What doctor shopping means when a patient goes from doctor to doctor to doctor to get a narcotic and or a tranquilizer and or a stimulant during that same period of time, that's the doctor shopping. Now, if you have a personal physician, you can go see another doc who's doing CTR, for instance. So here's what I've done for other physicians, because again, I know many docs after 32 years who are working employed under the systems, right? And they're sending some of their patients over to me who they believe need it, but they're not allowed to prescribe or to recommend it. So I become their consultant for this care for them. And I've said, happy to share information. So it's open, we're transparent. So no one's giving up to, and that's what I tell them. I say, I don't know, you're not going to be my patient. I don't want to do, I mean, you have a personal physician, stay with them. We can help you with that condition.
We have an online question.
Okay, a couple of questions. The first one, how do the dispensers really know what to give a certain person? The questioner seems to have some concern about whether the dispenser is being totally honest or could be holding back on something that might be beneficial.
Well, you hope not, is all I could say. I mean, you know, it's like the pharmacist. I don't know for sure, but I don't have that belief that they're going to be withholding information. But the bud tender theoretically is in it to help the patient coming in after hearing the conditions that they are suffering from. This is in the early stages, I say. So what I'd love to see is where I'm saying, all right, this is I know what the product is that they have on the shelf, and I know what the conditions this patient has, and maybe some other problems they've got as well. So this could be of benefit and to them. So that's ultimately where we'd like to be.
Okay, there are three questions that are similar. I'm going to combine them into one. People are wondering if they get the Ohio card, how can they make an appointment with you or find other certified doctors to recommend for perhaps somewhere else in the state or something like that?
Right.
And how do they prove that they have one or more of the prescribing conditions? Do they need to bring medications to show you, et cetera?
Right. Yeah, I should have talked about that earlier, sorry. So what we need to be able to certify them is you need a 1 or 2 years worth of medical information. And what I've done is I've asked for documentation from their personal physician or subspecialist, for instance. Summary of their chart notes, that's their note, it's not the patient. And what we've had is some patients in the beginning would come in and say, well, these are my conditions. This is what I have, doc. And I would say, that's great. Thank you very much. And I mean, I think I believe you, but I need documentation from your other physicians to prove that you've had it for a minimum of a year or at least, or maybe 2 years, so that I can put it in your chart and I can recommend you to the state. And I would say that's one way to help keep the system honest, basically. And also, well, actually, there's a little caveat, because what other questions have come up, again, you're going to see billboards, you're going to see all these issues and advertising for it. And I've actually had calls from organizations saying, hey, Dr. Sawyer, will you come to work for us? I go, no, I don't need to do that one. But where organizations will hire physicians, little clinics, so to speak. And physicians could, have a knowledge base on patients, can they set up and say, yes, I believe you. I believe you've had this disease for more than a year, and do that? I suspect they could. My concern on me, I'm not risking my license for 1 or 2 people, that's for sure. But if some groups somebody has chronic rheumatoid arthritis or other disabilities where there's clearly a problem that's documented, because I guarantee you we're going to be audited. The state's going to come in the back door, Dr. Sawyer, could I see your charts? And they're not going to give me 10 seconds to say, I'll be right back, let me go get the charts. They'll say, no, you sit right here, we'll go get your charts. So don't be so, yeah.
Could I ask a question about that? So we all know that the state was just so slow in getting this whole thing going. Could I put you on the spot?
You can try it. I'd see if I respond.
Would you give the state a letter grade from A to F and tell us what you think about?
Are you kidding me? They're going to be knocking on my door tomorrow, Dan. Don't you dare. I'll see you guys. Thanks a lot. I was really happy to be here.
Okay. Well, I guess that's a no, but.
Okay. My name is Pat, and I have a couple questions. One would be in terms of insurance coverage for people who owe at all.
0.
So what kind of expense is someone looking at to go to get the recommendation to get the card? The card's $50.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
It's a cash business. The insurance companies have clearly stated this is federally illegal. We're not covering anything. Now, so you'll hear docs are, they charge you this, that, differences, right? And I would just say, call around, see what they're doing. I'll tell you, very interesting. This sounds crazy to even bring up. And, I've had folks come in, we did to the certification process, they did all this, they went online, they went to the dispensary, and they go, oh my God, this cost me this much money. And I've had a couple of comments that people come in and said, I'm not going to do this. These dispensaries, it's costing X times more than somebody has access some other way. And I go, I can't comment about that one, but.
Okay, then my other question is because I've been, I guess, very secluded in terms of knowing how marijuana, I always thought of marijuana as you smoked it in some kind of a paper that it was a cigarette thing. Now, when there's oil involved, is that going to be in a capsule? Is it a dropper? What?
Yes. So here's what the oils, there are many ways that they ingest the oils now. There are vape pens, they're like vape cigarettes. The vaping, the jewels that you hear about, that you heat it up. There are also tinctures under the tongue. There are capsules you can use. There are edibles. They put it in, the oils in, edibles, gummies, if you will.
Okay. Well, you said earlier that if you went to the dispensary, they might recommend, the bud person would recommend 20% of one product and 80% of something else.
Right.
Are those leaves? Is this,
No. No, it would come in the form usually of something that's been processed, distilled in an oil or tincture and put into something. Now, there are blends of cannabis, and this is where you'll look at these names, the Dreamweaver, Black Cohosh, Kush, and all these names that they've defined that they have percentages of THC and CBD. So for those, they would come in a bud potentially, but Ohio has said they don't want people, they will allow leaf, okay, but they don't want anybody to smoke it. So a leaf, you can make a tea, you could put it into a brownie, you could put it into some other form, but there's also the tinctures and the oils.
Okay, so then it's these people with 16 hours of training that are making the call as to how you're going to ingest this.
Well, they're going to have a product like going to Kroger's with certain amounts of, food, for instance, and they're going to say, well, this is or Dunkin' Donuts, these are the donuts. You want one with sprinkles? Do you want with, plain? Do you want, they're going to have, X number of product available. And this is what I wish I could tell you, because I'd love to have a card right here that says, here's the one in Cincinnati. This is their card. These are the products they have available. But we don't have that yet.
Hi, Michelle. I just wanted to make a couple comments really quick because it sounds like there's confusion in the room a little bit about what marijuana plants are or how they work or whatever, but I have a good example to clear it up for you. So I thought I would share. You plant your seeds every year for your garden. You go to the store and you buy marigold tomatoes, or you buy cherry blossom this, or you buy a certain brand, a strand. It's DNA. It's DNA. So when they do that, they have the plants, they go through the labs. The lab knows the percentage of the CBD and the THC. So in the dispensaries, when they dispense the product, it actually lists those percentages on it. So just taking a wild stab here, and I haven't had the chance to go, but I would love to go to one of the dispensaries just for educational purposes.
Sure.
But I would assume if you walked in there and said, hey, I've never gotten high in my entire life. I've never touched this. I've never smoked it. But I hear it can help my chronic pain. They're not going to recommend one for you that has a high THC level. They're not going to want you to go out there and, get a crazy buzz off of it. They want you to reap the benefits. And one more comment, my daughter has epilepsy. She has epilepsy and chronic migraines. And about 3 years ago, we tried the oil down at Temptations, the CBD oil. It's a little pricey. About $100 a month is what it costs. But if you add up the medicines she takes, it definitely will go over that. It worked. We saw really good results. Never one time would she ever have, she didn't get a buzz. No kind of buzz, ever. No high, no nothing like that. And it worked very, very well. So just wanted to share my thoughts there.
Great. Thank you. Thanks.
Dr. Sawyer, a couple questions online about whether you are accepting new patients.
Yeah, really. Exactly. You have to call the office, they'll let you know. No, I mean, we do sort of, yeah.
Okay, and we'll make sure we post Dr. Sawyer's contact information online tomorrow. Thank you. Eddie.
Exactly.
Hi, my name is Leanne. What are like the supposed benefits to some of the conditions, and how does it affect the body besides like pain control?
So there's the endocannabinoid system in the body. It's another nervous system or pain system, if you will. In what they've discovered, it's through evolution. It's in newts and others, and after they've started doing a lot of this research. And there is some belief that the endocannabinoid system sort of parallels the meridians for acupuncture as well. Interesting. So there's CBD1 and CB1 and CB2 receptors. And then if you again, healer.com, they've got pictures in which organs are involved. So, and that's where you'll see how it can help certain conditions that involve certain organs. And the nervous system, the neurologic system, which mediates pain and transmits and communicates pain, is very involved. And which is why you'll see a lot of these diagnoses are related to pain, but also inflammation, as you'll see. That's a huge part as well. So it's the CBD helps reduce inflammation as well. And then the combination THC as well helps pain, inflammation, and anxieties. And that actually, this is briefly back to why, again, back to the opiate epidemic and how I got involved, because again, back to addiction's a human disease. The opiate epidemic, which is we need to do a much better management and treatment of it. Everybody who's used opiates, who has had addiction issues with it, has anxiety. It's their way of self-medicating. So, and what you'll find is a lot of folks had used marijuana or cannabis, and that's where some will say it's a gateway drug because they used cannabis for anxiety, then they went to use opiates. But everybody who's used opiates, not medicinally for orthopedic surgery problems, for instance, or tooth surgery, has anxiety. So they need something for anxiety. What can I prescribe? Xanax, Klonopin. My God, that's worse. That stuff is incredibly addictive and has many side effects potentially. And this would be a much better treatment. Interesting. Some of the pain clinics will not, when they're treating you for pain, for folks who really need, have epidural injections and whatnot, if you go in, the doc says, depending on the system they're employed by, if they have a urine that has THC in it, they'll kick you out. And I goes, some people have real pain. Like, you can't do that. We have to treat that. Who do truly. So that's where that understanding of making it available for people who really need this is critical to their work, right? Because that's another piece. You do a screen at work and you have THC and you've got a real problem, but at least you're under the care of somebody. Now, there's a caveat to that because some employers just aren't going to tolerate it anyway, but that's not, we can't necessarily do anything about that, but just to begin to validate that this is one of the tools in the toolkit is very important. Not just, docs who are setting up a clinic on the side of the road, and you've heard horror stories around in California and other places when this started, but make it part of the treatment program.
Question right here.
Yeah, I'm Rick. You were saying before that Ohio, that they apparently passed this law back in 2016, I think you said, and then it's taken them a while to get this thing off the ground, and it seems like they've been lagging in some of the stuff. Do you see any changes in the program down the road, or
I hope so.
Getting some of these bugs worked out of the program, because it just sounds like it sounds like a cluster.
So here's what I will say. So if you wanted to design something for failure, you might have done it this way, but that's what I'll say.
That's the answer to my question. Thank you. We got time for a couple more. Sir, did you have a question? Okay, we've got time for a couple more questions.
Yeah, but I want to see improvements. I believe this is an important program that I want to see continue to refine, to make sure that we have medicinal management for those who really will benefit. So that's why I'm happy to stick my neck out. This is what I told Dan. I'm happy to talk about and take questions, because we need to make this right. I don't want the guy who's setting up, put a sign on 75 or someplace, come on in, and the pill mill, because if the state says, you see, we told you, they'll shut it right down. Sorry.
My name is Ron. My question is, does CBDs and THC in whatever proportion, combination, you say it treats something, does that mean it cures something, or does that mean it mitigates symptoms?
It certainly mitigates symptoms. Now, what's the initial process? So if you have, certain inflammatory processes, let's say in the gut, right? You'll hear more about the microbiome, gut health, leaky guts, too many antibiotics, again, docs, we're doing this, or you're taking Roundup, you're eating Roundup and anthracene through my grape nuts and Cheerios. Oh my gosh, you're kidding. And so we're getting leaky gut, neurotransmitters here lead to problems in the brain and other places. So, but I've got to stop eating that. Food is medicine, but how many of us are going to change and start eating certain foods because I've been eating Cheerios for decades, and then things change, it's hard to change. It treats symptoms.
Thank you. Right here.
My name is John. Listening to this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's an uncontrolled experiment because you're not getting feedback to really have a cause and effect. And so I'm trying to figure out why would they come up with this unless the pharmaceutical companies or somebody doesn't. It would seem like the safest thing to do would be to produce a CBD medication from a pharmaceutical company where it would be controlled and you would know what the level of dosage was and stuff like that. Right now, it's kind of a Wild West thing where you say, well, go see these people, and somebody with 16 hours, now they have selfish motivation. They want you to come back, so hopefully they give you something to help instead of making you sick. But do you have any idea of why something that seems to be so beneficial with pain relief, a pharmaceutical company hasn't found either I'll call it a generic alternative that could be regulated?
Well, no, they have some. Epidiolex they use for seizures. It was just legalized, FDA passed, I forget, months ago or 10 months ago, 12 months ago. And there's another one, Marinol, that's been around for nausea, for chemotherapy for years. You can only get it in certain diagnoses. It's restricted for that. I think part of the other issue they've seen around the country, it's the effectiveness that's happening, that's going on. And I think at a certain level, it was probably a gut reaction to when they were trying to legalize marijuana recreationally a couple of years beforehand. And so I think it was, may have been hurry up, let's patch it together, let's see what we can do. And that's where I think the benefit for those who actually care is, let's improve this. Again, don't throw this out because there's tremendous benefit. It really is, medicinally. It has very, very few side effects when used correctly. I mean, if you take way too much of something, one of the big issues is you'll pass out on the ground. It's not like it's going to suppress respiration. So sort of, if you will, the side effect profile isn't the same as the OxyContins of the world and whatnot. So
We're going to take 2 questions online, and then we're going to stop there. Jay.
Okay, a couple of questions. Some folks are wondering exactly how you take the medication. I know you made a reference earlier to heating it. And then secondly, do you know anything about whether the doctor's visits or the medical marijuana itself are or will be covered by insurance companies?
no, it's all going to be cash business. And that's where many people go, gosh, it's too expensive to do this through this route, which is, I mean, that's where if folks are, doing it some other way, they can do that on their own. But to be managed, correctly with folks who don't know. And that's where, again, I'll go back to, it's for the age 50 and older who really aren't aware of and who could benefit for these conditions. It's, the chronic pain, fibromyalgia, all those problems that you've been given, OxyContin, oxycodone, Percocet, Norco, and other problems in ibuprofen. You're going to hear more about Aleve and ibuprofen. Are they causing cardiac issues and GI issues? And now we're coming up with problems of this chronic use down the road. And we're going, can we develop or use something that doesn't have other organ failure problems? So.
Let's thank our guest tonight, everybody. Thank you so much.
Right.
Dr. Sawyer, thank you so much for coming.
Thank
We kind of wore you out with questions, didn't we?
Oh, it's good. No. This is actually, the truth is this is actually much better because this is about you all. And what I want you to do is I want you to go share it with your family and friends, frankly, and talk to them, because I want your physicians out there to hear about this. And I want you to say, hey, doc, what's going on? Tell me about this, because it's important. I think it'll be very effective.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
One more round of applause for Doc.
Right.
Okay, so just a couple quick housekeeping things. This is the first time we've ever had a service animal, Jack, here tonight. Let's give him a round of applause. It's great to have you, Jack. And a few things about tonight's presentation. This chart, which lists what you can get the prescription for, will be posted online tomorrow, as will Dr. Sawyer's contact information, as will the 2 websites that he recommended, as will an article that our friend and former board member Ed Bell sent me while the class was going on. So look for that online. You'll also be able to see a recording of this class that will be posted by the end of the day tomorrow. You just go on the website to this class right here, and you'll see a link that says to watch a recording of this class. Click here, and it's great. You can go forward, backward, and any of your friends who couldn't get here tonight or anybody online, you'll be able to see a replay of the class. So,
Dan, you might want to mention that tomorrow they'll need to scroll to the bottom to previous classes in order to find it.
yeah, once the class is over, it goes to the very bottom of the page. So just scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll see the class. So, last question. Do you guys want to know the results of the straw poll? So this wasn't kind of done for any, it was done just because I felt like I needed a benchmark to know where people are on these 2 questions. So let me tell you where people are, whether this is right or wrong. And we had a bunch of people respond online, which was kind of cool. 85% of the people who responded said that there is an emergency on the southern border. 75% of the people who responded said that the president should be able to declare an emergency and spend money. So those were the results of of your votes. And with that being said, I think our class on March 19th kind of goes right into this subject a little bit. I hope to see a lot of you there tonight. And for those of you who braved the weather, thanks so much for coming. And to all the new people, we're glad you could make it. Have a good night, everybody.